In this scene, the alien generals are observing what is supposed to be an extended 3-day battle simulation. The setup is meant to test the resilience, strategy, and endurance of cadets from various galactic species. The human cadets considered Deathworlders due to Earth's classification as a harsh, dangerous world are expected to hold their own, but no one anticipates what unfolds. As the simulation begins, the alien generals watch with amusement and slight condescension, expecting the human cadets to take their time and eventually struggle. However, within minutes, they witness a shockingly coordinated display of tactics, precision, and ruthlessness. The humans move like a well-oiled machine, flanking the enemy, exploiting weaknesses, and using every inch of terrain to their advantage. By the 15-minute mark, the simulation is over. What was supposed to take days is done in less time than a briefing session. The alien generals are left in stunned silence as the human cadets casually walk off the battlefield, hardly breaking a sweat. The dialogue between the stunned generals could be a mix of disbelief and fear. Impossible. That strategy. How could they think so fast? Did they bypass the systems? No, they just outplayed everyone in minutes. And these are their cadets. This could be followed by the lead human commander giving a nonchalant statement that was just basic training. As the simulation room went eerily quiet, the alien generals huddled around their observation deck, eyes wide and filled with disbelief. The massive high-graphic display, which had been designed to project a sprawling, complex battlefield, now sat in ruin, virtually speaking. Of course, the human cadet had torn through the defenses like a hurricane through a glass house. A seasoned HFY general, with his bioluminescent scales flickering in confusion, stared at the aftermath. His voice was laced with incredulity as he muttered, 3 days, reduced to 15 minutes. An older Chiralian admiral, her 8 eyes narrowing into slits, responded sharply, "This must be a malfunction in the simulation systems. No species should be able to process and execute at such speeds." She immediately ordered a full systems diagnostic, but the AI running the simulation calmly reported, "Simulation parameters completed within expected operational conditions. No anomalies detected." The confirmation only deepened the tension in the room. Down on the virtual battlefield, the human cadets emerged from the simulation pods, removing their helmets with casual indifference. They began chatting among themselves, joking about dinner plans and upcoming shore leave as if they had just obliterated every other species. Carefully crafted strategies. One of the younger alien officers, still in disbelief, whispered to a colleague, "These Deathworlders, they are only cadets." A Grieve and general, who had fought in several of the galaxy's largest wars, leaned in, his voice filled with a mix of awe and fear. "I've seen seasoned warriors struggle with this exact simulation. Their coordination was flawless, almost like they were communicating telepathically." "They weren't," another officer corrected grimly. "That was just training, pure instinct and discipline." Back on the ground level, the lead human cadet, a tall, unassuming figure with an easygoing demeanor, finally approached the gathered alien generals. He was greeted by silence, the weight of all hanging heavily in the air. One particularly brave general cleared his throat, his voice trembling slightly. "Tell me, human, what was that?" The cadet smirked, almost embarrassed by the question. That was just standard protocol. We've been through worse back home." The alien leaders exchanged nervous glances. Worse? What could possibly be worse than a simulation that had taken their finest officers days to plan and execute? As if reading their minds, the human added with a casual shrug, "This is just how we're trained. We don't like dragging things out when we don't have to." Before anyone could respond, the room's main door slid open. A high-ranking human officer strode in, his eyes scanning the tense crowd of alien leaders. He gave a small, polite smile and spoke in a voice that cut through the silence like a knife. "I hope you all enjoyed the demonstration. You see, when it comes to warfare, we don't waste time." The subtle message was clear. Humans, once thought to be brash newcomers to the galactic stage, had just rewritten the rules of combat, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The silence after the human officer's remark stretched long enough that the alien generals began to fidget nervously. Some tried to suppress the overwhelming sense of vulnerability they felt. The humans had just demonstrated not only raw power but something more dangerous, efficiency, a cold, methodical efficiency that the rest of the galaxy wasn't prepared for. A Denobran strategist, renowned for his cautious and meticulous battle plans, was the first to voice the growing concern. His twin hearts hammered in his chest as he spoke up, his voice betraying the nervousness he tried to hide. I've studied hundreds of battles across Adamsine systems. I've seen tactical genius unfold over days of careful maneuvering. But you, his finger trembled as he pointed to the holographic map, where the human cadet team's devastating movements were highlighted. You turned what should have been a protracted siege into an execution. The lead cadet, hands casually tucked into his pockets, raised an eyebrow. You're overthinking it. All we did was recognize the flaws in the enemy's strategy and exploited them. No need for a drawn-out fight when you can hit the weak points quickly. Another alien officer, a reptiliaster, who prided himself on quick skirmish tactics, couldn't contain his disbelief. But how did you see it so fast? Our species spends years refining these simulations. You had no prior knowledge of the battlefield layout. The human officer stepped forward, answering for his cadet, because that's how we survive on Earth. It's instinct for us. We come from a world where the environment and predators don't give you time to second guess. You either adapt or die. It's in our nature to assess situations in seconds and find solutions fast. Murmurs rippled through the ranks of alien officers. The idea that humans had evolved in such a harsh, relentless environment filled them with a mix of pity and unease. What kind of species would be forged in such conditions? The Chirolian admiral, regaining some composure, leaned forward with all 8 eyes, studying the humans intently. You humans are unpredictable, unorthodox, a species shaped by chaos. She glanced down at the simulation map again. But this kind of rapid decision-making, how can we hope to match it? The human officer smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. That's the thing, you're playing by rules that make sense in your controlled environment. But war isn't neat. It's not a chess game you can control with perfect strategy. It's chaos, and we thrive in chaos. The weight of his words sank deep. The alien generals had long prided themselves on order, on complex strategies that often unfolded over the course of weeks or months. But here was a species, barely recognized by the Galactic Council until recently, telling them that everything they knew about war was obsolete. Then why share this with us? An elder Miron general finally asked, his voice thin and wary. You could have kept this power hidden. The human officer's smile faded into something more serious, more calculating, because this was just a demonstration, a friendly exercise to show you what's possible. We've been observing your strategies for years now, and it's time you understand that we aren't just another species to be managed. There was a pause, and then the officer's eyes hardened. Make no mistake, he continued, when humanity is called to fight for real, we won't hold back, and you don't want to see what we're capable of when we're actually pushed. The room went cold. The alien generals, so accustomed to being the ones who issued ultimatums, now found themselves on the receiving end of a veiled threat they knew wasn't made lightly. One of the younger cadets, a wide grin on his face, slapped his fellow cadet on the back. Come on, let's grab something to eat. Bet those simulations didn't burn enough calories. As the human cadets laughed and made their way out, the alien leaders were left in stunned silence, the weight of the demonstration sinking in. It wasn't just the speed at which the humans won, it was the brutal efficiency, the sheer audacity of their tactics, and the chilling fact that this was just basic training for them. The Zith Kai general, staring after the retreating humans, whispered to himself, if this is how they fight as cadets, what will they become as warriors? The alien generals, usually confident in their strategic prowess, were left in an uncomfortable stillness, struggling to process the weight of what had just transpired. It wasn't just the sheer speed of the humans' victory that disturbed them, it was the implication that their species' entire approach to war, one refined over millennia, might be inadequate. A veteran Carthan general, with battle scars crisscrossing his thick exoskeleton, finally broke the silence. His deep, gravelly voice echoed through the room. They didn't just fight to win, they fought to end the conflict before it could even begin. There was no wasted movement. No unnecessary engagement. It was as if they saw the entire battle unfold before it even started. They might have, another general muttered, eyes still glued to the holographic replay. Look at their patterns. It's not just instinct, it's like they've perfected something far beyond a mere strategy. The room's lights dimmed as the holographic replay zoomed in on key moments of the simulation. The human cadets had not just been efficient, they had anticipated every move of their opponents, as if they were 2 steps ahead at all times. Plans that should have taken hours to organize were completed in minutes. Ambushes that would have devastated normal troops were detected and dismantled before they even formed. I've studied hundreds of species, the Denobran strategist murmured, his twin heart still racing. None of us could process battlefield information that quickly, not without significant AI assistance, but these humans, they did it organically. It's like they're hardwired for chaos. The Grieve and General, still shaken, leaned back in his chair. Hardwired for chaos, that's it, isn't it? They've evolved in environments so hostile, so unforgiving, that conflict isn't a choice for them, it's a necessity. We plan wars like it's a game of strategy, like there are rules to follow, but he paused, searching for the right words, they live it. At that moment, the human officers turned, catching the subtle murmurings of the generals behind him. His expression remained calm, yet there was an edge to his voice as he spoke again. There's something you all need to understand. His gaze swept the room, meeting the eyes of every alien leader present. Humanity has only ever known conflict. From the moment we stood upright, we fought not just against each other, but against the planet itself. Survival wasn't optional. He let the words hang in the air, the weight of Earth's brutal history, sinking into the minds of his listeners. We learned long ago that victory doesn't come to those who wait, or those who take their time. Victory comes to those who strike first and strike hard. Every second in a fight is a second closer to death, so we don't waste any. The alien leaders exchanged uneasy glances, realizing that this wasn't bravado, it was simply fact. The human way of war wasn't one of glory or drawn-out campaigns. It was pragmatic, brutal, final. But what happens when you can't win that fast? An older teller in general asked, her pale skin shimmering in the dim light. What if you face an enemy that drags you into a prolonged war? You can rely on short bursts of action forever. The human officers met her gaze, unflinching. We don't. When a fight lasts, we adapt, we evolve. His expression hardened again. Our wars on Earth have lasted centuries. Our people are resilient. We've learned to endure hardship that would break most species. When the time comes to fight long wars, we'll fight them, and we'll outlast whoever stands in our way. The alien generals stared at him, realizing that the humans' greatest strength wasn't just their tactical brilliance or their speed, it was their adaptability, their ability to change and evolve in the heat of battle, no matter how long it took. The Sci-Fi general, still haunted by the destruction the humans had wrought in a mere 15 minutes, leaned forward, his voice low and cautious. What do you expect us to do with this knowledge? Human, are you here to warn us or to threaten us? The human officer smiled faintly, but it wasn't a kind smile. Neither. I'm here to inform you, the galaxy is a big place, and we're just getting started. What you witnessed here today is only a fraction of what we can do, but we're not your enemies. Not unless you make us. He paused, allowing his words to sink in before delivering the final blow. But note this, if you ever think about testing humanity's limits, you won't find any. And when we fight, we don't stop until the fight is over, permanently. The alien generals felt the cold chill of those words. There was no arrogance in his tone, no unnecessary threats. It was simply the reality of humanity, a species forged by chaos, sharpened by conflict, and now standing on a galactic stage with an unpredictable and terrifying power. The humans left the room, their presence lingering like a shadow of what was to come. As the door slid shut, the alien leaders were left in stunned silence, knowing that the galaxy had changed that day. And in the recesses of their minds, each general couldn't shake the same thought, wait, the next time, it's real. As the door slid shut behind the departing humans, the alien generals remained in uneasy silence. The tension in the room was palpable, a cold realization settling in their minds. They had witnessed something far more profound than a mere military exercise. It was an omen, The galaxy was on the precipice of a shift, and the humans were the fulcrum. The teller in general, her pale skin shimmering faintly as she absorbed the weight of what had just happened, stood up slowly. She looked around at her fellow commanders, her voice barely above a whisper. We have underestimated them, not just their strength, but their very nature. The Grieve and General, known for his grim pragmatism, leaned back in his seat, his reptilian eyes narrowing. They don't just fight wars, he said, his voice gravelly. They end them. That's the difference. We've grown too comfortable in our long, drawn-out conflicts, in our negotiations and careful strategies. But the humans, they fight like each battle is the last one. They've perfected the art of survival. A murmur of agreement rippled through the ranks of generals, their collective understanding dawning slowly. For millennia, their civilizations had thrived on control, careful maneuvers, measured diplomacy. Wars fought like elaborate games of chess, but this new player on the galactic stage didn't play by their rules. Humanity was not a species to be underestimated or manipulated. They were a force of nature. The Chirolian admiral, her 8 eyes glistening with a mixture of fear and admiration, finally spoke, her voice quivering. If this is what their cadets can do, what would their seasoned warriors be capable of? We've seen nothing compared to their full potential. The elder Miron General, with his long, flowing robes marking his station, furrowed his brow in deep thought. His people had prided themselves on their long histories of peaceful resolutions and non-aggression treaties, but he understood the harsh reality before them now. We've grown complacent, he admitted, his voice heavy with the weight of truth. We've forgotten what it's like to fight for survival. The humans haven't. They bring with them a kind of warfare we haven't faced in centuries. If we are not careful, we may provoke them. Another general, a hulking figure from the warlike Carthan species, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. His people were no strangers to conflict, having dominated numerous systems in the past through sheer brute force. But even he couldn't ignore what he had just seen. Our people have fought many wars, but we've never faced opponents like this. They're not just soldiers, they're survivors. They don't fight for glory or conquest. They fight because they have to. A somber quiet descended over the room, broken only by the soft hum of the holographic projectors still running in the background. The battlefield replay still hung in the air, displaying the human cadets' relentless, efficient takedown of their enemies. It was a chilling reminder of what they were up against. Finally, the HFY general stood, his bioluminescent scales flickering with a deep, somber hue. His voice was low, carrying the weight of a decision that none of them wanted to acknowledge. We must reconsider our stance on humanity. They are no longer the young, brash species we once thought them to be. They've grown into something far more dangerous. The Denopran strategist, usually the most composed of the group, rubbed his temples in frustration. We've spent decades trying to contain them, to keep them from becoming a threat, but it's too late for that now. We can't control them, and we certainly can't outfight them, not with the strategies we've relied on for centuries. The Chirolian admiral nodded grimly. Then what do we do? How do we approach a species that can win a 3-day battle in 15 minutes? How do we negotiate with beings who see conflict the way they do? The room was thick with uncertainty as they all considered the admiral's question. The rules of the galactic order had been shattered, and they were struggling to piece together a new strategy, a new way of dealing with this unstoppable force called humanity. After a long pause, the elder Miron General finally spoke, his voice quiet but resolute. We don't fight them. We can't afford to. If we push humanity into a corner, if we provoke them, they will come at us with everything they have, and we won't survive that. His words hung in the air like a death sentence, and the other generals nodded slowly, each of them coming to the same grim conclusion. The HFY general clenched his fists, his voice hardening with reluctant acceptance. Then we must learn to coexist with them, as equals, not adversaries. We've spent too long seeing them as lesser beings, as unpredictable upstarts, but now we know the truth. He looked around at his fellow commanders, his bioluminescence flickering with a sense of finality. We must find a way to make them our allies, because if we don't, we may one day find ourselves on the wrong side of a battle we cannot win. The alien generals, hardened veterans of countless wars, now stood in the shadow of a realization that shook them to their cores. Humanity was no longer a species to be controlled or guided. They were something far more formidable, a force that had risen from the chaos of their homeworld to become a power that could reshape the galaxy itself. As they left the room, one by one, the same unspoken thought followed them: the galaxy has changed forever, and the humans are at the heart of that change. The alien generals filed out of the conference room, the weight of their discussions heavy in the air. As they moved down the corridor, their expressions were a mixture of apprehension and determination. Each step echoed the unspoken acknowledgement that their perceptions of power and warfare had been irrevocably altered. In the days that followed, the alien coalition convened emergency sessions, grappling with the implications of their new reality. Strategies once considered foolproof were tossed aside, replaced by a desperate need to understand and, more importantly, to communicate with the humans. The Denobran strategist took the lead, his analytical mind racing to find solutions. We need to study their methods, their training, and their culture. Understanding how they think and fight is crucial. If we can adapt, we might find a way to collaborate instead of compete. The Carthan general, still grappling with his pride, reluctantly agreed. Perhaps we could propose joint training exercises. We need to demonstrate that we can learn from them. A display of cooperation might be enough to ease tensions. The Chirolian admiral nodded, her 8 eyes narrowing in thought. But we must tread carefully. Humans are not easily swayed by diplomacy alone. We'll need to prove our intentions are sincere. They respect strength, but they also respect those who can learn from them. A show of humility may help. Weeks turned into months as the coalition began to implement their new strategy. They reached out to the humans, proposing collaborative efforts and joint exercises, carefully crafting a message that emphasized unity and mutual respect. As the proposals were sent, a mixture of anticipation and anxiety filled the ranks of the alien leaders. Would the humans respond positively, or would they dismiss their overtures as weakness? Finally, the day arrived. The response from the Human Federation came in the form of an invitation to participate in a multi-species training event designed to showcase not just their military capabilities, but their willingness to share knowledge. The aliens quickly accepted, each leader filled with a mixture of hope and trepidation. On the day of the event, a vast training ground was set up, a massive simulated battlefield that combined the unique elements of various species warfare strategies. The alien generals arrived. Watching as human cadets prepared for the drills, there was an energy in the air, a palpable tension as both sides understood that this was more than just a demonstration. It was a test of resolve, intelligence, and adaptability. As the exercises began, the alien generals were awestruck once again. The humans moved with a fluidity and confidence that was both exhilarating and terrifying. They integrated their training methods with alien tactics, showcasing how they could adapt on the fly. The drills flowed seamlessly, revealing a depth of understanding that reinforced the need for cooperation rather than conflict. The Carthan general observed, a spark of admiration flickering in his chest. They are incredible. I've seen soldiers adapt before, but it's a level of understanding I didn't expect. The Telleran general, her eyes wide, added, they aren't just adapting to our tactics, they're enhancing them. It's as if they've absorbed our styles and woven them into something uniquely theirs. As the day progressed, the atmosphere shifted from tension to camaraderie. Laughter and shouts of encouragement filled the air as human cadets and alien soldiers began to form bonds, sharing techniques and strategies. The competitive edge that once threatened to divide them turned into a collaborative spirit.